history, and all these other things that we need to understand if we're going to retain our democracy. And when the Fairness Doctrine came along, everybody said, hey, this is going to be the way that the public gets its information. We cannot afford to let this medium fall into the hands of a handful of profit-making corporations who are going to use it to enhance their own position and to consolidate their power with government against the people and against our constitutional rights. And that's why they passed the Fairness Doctrine. Now it was eroded. It was destroyed by Reagan, and then Clinton also, through the Telecommunications Act, torpedoed it and sank it completely. So, and this corporate consolidation is happening now, as Greg showed in his film here. We are seeing the privatization of the American government, and we have a government now, that turned FEMA over, to somebody who paid them campaign contributions. And the head of the Forest Service is a timber industry lobbyist, Mark Ray, probably the most rapacious in history. The head of public lands, a mining industry lobbyist, Stephen Griles, who believes that public lands are unconstitutional. The head of the Air Division at the EPA is a utility lobbyist, Jeffrey Homestead, who's represented nothing but the worst air polluters during his entire career. The head of Superfund is a woman whose last job was teaching corporate polluters how to evade Superfund. The second in command of EPA is a Monsanto lobbyist. And I just did another piece in this month's Vanity Fair that shows that the top 100 environmental officials in the Department of Commerce, which regulates fisheries, Department of Interior, Department of Energy, Department of Agriculture, at the FDA, the EPA, and even the relevant divisions of the Justice Department are virtually, without exception, lobbyists from the worst of the worst of the worst of these polluters. And this is happening throughout our government, not just in the pollution, but everywhere else, where you're getting corporations who are now running American government. And what happens when you allow corporations to run our government? What you get is plunder. And I have to say this. The American people have to understand that there is a huge difference between free market capitalism, which is a good thing because it makes us more efficient, more prosperous, and more democratic, and the kind of corporate crony capitalism which has been embraced by this White House. And the reason they shouldn't be running our government is because corporations don't want the same thing for America as Americans want. Corporations do not want free markets, and they do not want democracy. They want profits. And the best way for them to get profits too often is to use our campaign finance system, which is just a system of legalized bribery, to get their hooks into a public official, then use that public official to dismantle the marketplace, to give them monopoly control, and then to privatize the commons, to turn over our treasury, our air, our water, our public lands, our wildlife, our fisheries, the shared resource of our society that give context to our communities, that connect us to our past, and that are a source of our values and our virtues and our character as a people, and to turn those over for profit to these corporations. And when corporations, we have to remember this, legally cannot do good things. They cannot do true philanthropy. They can't do things that are good for our country or for our communities. When you see, Walmart bringing bottled water down to the Katrina victims, they're not doing that to be good guys. They're doing it because they think that over the long run, that the public view of them will be enhanced, and that will enhance their shareholder value and their dividend distribution. If they have another reason for doing it, any one of their shareholders can sue them, and they will win that lawsuit. It is called wasting corporate assets. It is against the law in this country for a corporation to turn itself into a philanthropy. And if they're caught doing it, their board members will be punished, and their shareholders can sue them. And there's, and there's nothing wrong. We want corporations to be this way, to focus narrowly. We don't want them to turn into philanthropies, because nobody would invest in them. We want them to focus narrowly on shareholder value. But we would be nuts to let them anywhere near our government, because we designed them to plunder. And that's what they're going to do to us if we let them run our country. And that's what they're doing now. And that's why, from the beginning of our national history, our greatest political leaders, Republicans and Democrats, have been warning Americans against the domination of corporate power. Teddy Roosevelt, a Republican, said that America would never be destroyed by a foreign enemy, by an Osama bin Laden, but he warned that our Bill of Rights, our Constitution, and our treasured democratic institutions would be subverted by malefactors of great wealth who would steal them from within. Dwight Eisenhower, a Republican in his most famous speech ever, warned Americans against the domination by the military-industrial complex. Abraham Lincoln, the greatest Republican in history, said during the height of the Civil War in 1863, "I have the South in front of me, and I have the bankers behind me. And for my country, I fear the bankers more." And Franklin Roosevelt, during World War II, said that the domination of government by corporate power is, quote, "the essence of fascism." And Benito Mussolini, who had an insider's view of that process, said essentially the same thing. He complained that fascism should not be called fascism. It should be called corporatism, because it was the merger of state and corporate power. And what we have to understand in this country is that the domination of business by government is called communism, and the domination of government by business is called fascism. And what we need to do, what our job is to walk that narrow trail in between, which is free market capitalism and democracy, and hold big government at bay with our right hand and big business at bay with our left. And in order to do that, we need an informed public that is able to recognize all the milestones of tyranny. And we need an aggressive and independent press that is willing to stand up and speak truth to power. And we no longer have that in the United States of America. Thank you all very much.